Hello everyone and welcome back to the Smite Regional Championships. It's the Super Regionals, guys. We're on the fourth day of a 6-day event. It's a pretty long one. We've already qualified 2 teams to the World Championships yesterday. Enemy with a massive upset over Epsilon. Pretty unexpected.
Over Envy.
Actually, not Epsilon. We're going to see Epsilon, but over Envy, correct. And then later in the day, we saw Cloud9 and Eager go all 5 games, all incredibly close. Cloud9 toppling Eager, though, and both those teams are going to be qualified for Worlds. However, Envy and Eager will be dropping down to that wild card bracket to face the losers of today as well. So I'm going to be joined by ShadowNightmare, who we just saw on stage play against Titan, and Ataraxia, who we just saw on stage play against Dignitas. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, thanks.
Yeah, pretty good. Had a bit of fun on stage, got to play some Artemis, so...
A little bit of Artemis?
Yeah, it's not a bad day if you get to play Artemis.
Artemis is always fun. You actually played it at the beginning of the split against Fnatic at Gamescom.
I did, yeah.
Did you play it since then?
Not really, no. I think maybe once in ranked, because I'm not sure if you know Sayo, the old...
Oh, no, that was Confrey, right? At the time?
I think we've both done it. Oh, it was Confrey at the start.
Yeah, it was mixed. It was a little bit of a mix.
But Sayo's got this amazing golden bow build where you start with Rune Dagger 2. I was not sure whether to do it or not. It's a bit rubbish, but it's a lot of fun. But ultimately, I chickened out. But, shout out to Sayo for the Artemis.
All right, guys, we're going to be watching the Europeans qualify for Worlds today. Epsilon versus London Conspiracy. I know London Conspiracy wasn't necessarily an upset against you guys, but tell me how good London Conspiracy is right now, and honestly, what their chances are against such a dominant force such as Epsilon, who went 27-1 in the Pro League.
I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup because LC technically have more LAN experience than Epsilon because Epsilon haven't actually played a game together outside of the HB Omen. But Epsilon, we saw them in the 4 split and they have had an incredible run. So it's I think it's going to be, LAN experience versus this is kind of the stellar team in the world right now. No one can really question that.
Shadow, do you think we could potentially see an upset, or is this looking
I think
more for
LC
FC?
might take 1 or 2 games, but I think overall Epsilon will take it. Just because LC seem to have this wombo combo with Naja Scylla they keep doing over and over again. I think maybe it's just a one-trick pony. I think if Epsilon just take out the Naja Scylla out of the equation, I think they could probably take all the games, honestly.
How important is it to have multiple kind of game plans or game styles coming in? Because, like Shadow said, the one-trick pony of the Naja Scylla, Epsilon kind of got a good look at that yesterday. They may be prepared for it. Do you think it's important to have multiple layers to your team style or team game plan?
Yeah, it's very important. We saw COG. They ran 3 different strategies. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for them. They couldn't find ways to close it out, but they were prepared for C9 in that way, and it just didn't work out. We'll see LC hopefully deviate a little bit away from that Naja strategy because they can't rely on one strategy, especially against a seasoned team like Epsilon, which went, like you said, 27-1 throughout the SPL.
And, we actually, I do want to talk to you, Shadow, because you went all 5 games against Paradigm, unfortunately losing. You guys were the underdogs, kind of like Enemy. Honestly, how do you think you should have won those games?
Yeah, we definitely should have won, but classic throwing the task at the Fire Giant, as you do.
Oh, man. It was pretty rough. But tell me how kind of a meta develops, because we also talked to Cloud9's Jeff Hindla after they won, and he really talked about the importance of changing up your pick and ban strategy in the middle of a set because you start to see the strategies and styles that work.
That's interesting, actually, because before we came, we got a few scrims in because the EU meta is completely different from NA meta. So when we got here, we were scrimming Enemy, we scrimmed them all day before our game, and we actually learned a lot from them, and that's when we went back to the hotel, redrafted our entire pick and ban stage based around the NA meta because we noticed EU weren't picking Capri at all, and we saw the potential that that combined with HAL that we did against Titan just now. We also did that against Paradigm in I think 3 or 4 of the games. So the NA meta, just when you see the picks that they do in comparison to EU, you can just easily take control. So I think, the meta picks are amazing if you think about it, to be honest.
So how important was the pick and ban phase for you guys bringing Paradigm to 5 games? Do you think it was because you got those enemy scrims?
Definitely the HAL Capri honestly carried us a few games.
Do you feel like you had a North American style, or do you feel like you kind of merged the European and North American meta?
I don't know. I mean, the first game, we knew they had a strong early, so we just delayed it till late game. I'm not sure that's an NA thing that people do, but we just sat it out till late game with the Capri HAL and just waited and waited.
Yeah, and if there's ever 2 gods that go late game like that, you definitely want the HAL and the Capri.
I mean, no, you can go.
So we're going to be talking about the 2 teams now that we're going to be seeing London Conspiracy taking on the dominant Epsilon. Let's go through the Hunters real quick. Looking at Epsilon, I'm I'm looking at Emilito because I think this player has drastically changed since the summer split. He actually had the highest death count for a hunter during the summer split. It was something like near 60. Not the case this time. Ataraxia, how has he really developed as a hunter?
I feel he's matured, if anything. In previous seasons, Emilito has been a bit, I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying this, but he's been a bit immature in the past, and he's really, since coming on with Epsilon, he's taken it a lot serious, and you can see that in his play, and he's much more down to earth with the way he actually approaches this now. And I think that the way Epsilon are going to run this is that LC are probably going to look for more team strategies and coming together as a unit, but I think on Epsilon they really have to watch out because every single one of their people can actually pop off and do amazing work in the game.
Do you think that Epsilon leans a little bit too much towards the Neath?
I think the EU really, really values Neath because she's such a flexible pick. She can go in 3 roles pretty well, and she provides so much utility. And even though she's not got the same impact as a Ram or a Shibalanki late game, it's not like she's not there. You know, she's still providing support. Like a 30% attack speed slow is pretty strong. You got the root, you got the snipes all game. I think that it works very well with the way that they focus on yamming and adapting to get them into the lead. And having Emilito there on the side of the snipes is very important.
And he's going to be matching up against London Conspiracy, Shaggy, ShadowNightmare. How do we feel that this matchup is going to go directly? Do we think there's going to be any aggression, or is it kind of going to be a farm fest?
I think there'll be a lot of aggression. They're both aggressive players. Shaggy Shang's got great mechanical skill, strong player around, but that's exactly the same for Emilito as well. So I think the matchup's more likely going to be who's going to get ganked first and who's going to get a little bit tilted because of that, and who's going to shut themselves down and start farming to play safe.
And a big part of the gank's probably going to be coming from the supports as well. Iraffer and both Emilzy really heavy roam players, I would say, really like to control the pace of the game. Anatoliy, tell me a little bit about Iraffer.
I think Iraffer plays very aggressive supports that are just going to try to look for plays. We're going to see probably Ares more than likely out of him, and with that rotation, it's going to be very deadly, obviously, in the mid lane. More than likely, we're not going to see Circuit for that reason, unless Ares is going to get banned away from Raffer.
Why do you think we don't really see Ares in North America? Do you think there's a reason for that, Toli?
I think it's like very hit or miss, and I think the EU is a little bit more confident on the Ares in terms of making plays in that Guardian position, whereas NA is probably looking for more plays out of other positions than the Guardian.
Do you guys agree? Are a lot of the European sports looking for these heavy aggressive plays?
I mean, we used to, but I think we've kind of calmed it down a bit now. We play a little bit safer, but sometimes you can just pull out like something really aggressive like Ymir or Ares and just completely catch them off guard, especially with like Purple Pot or something. Like that really like can tip the game.
I heard on the cast yesterday, Ataraxia, that you say you're kind of the main shot caller for Titan, at least the general stuff.
Not the main shot caller. It's the reserved guy. You know, when we go too deep and we start, you know, when we're like building a lead and maybe we're going too far, I'm the no guy. You know, the naysayer. Killer of fun.
But Emilzy is the main shot caller for that team. How important and critical is that for London Conspiracy heading into Epsilon?
I actually think Emilzy is kind of the team in the way that everything that starts for LC, you know, whenever they start building a lead, it's going to come from him. And I would really expect to see him involved with everything. Although saying that, Cherio and Alset, he came out of nowhere. You know, he's used to playing on 150 ping in Egypt and coming to LAN. I think that if he decides to play more confident and selfish gods like a Thor or a Sikat, we could actually see him really give adapting a run for his money.
And he's got a pretty deep god pool as well. I believe in the 14 games he played in the Pro League, the 14 games he played in the Pro League in the second half, he played 10 different gods. How important is it for your jungler to have kind of that wide variety in god pool? Is it just kind of his thing where he couldn't find his footing, or is the style just for him to fit the team comp?
I think having the wide god pool is actually really good because you can't really get banned out, you can't really shut you down, but having too big of a god pool could set you back because you're playing all these different gods. You're going to like forget how to play other gods, you're going to be uncomfortable when you need to play something you haven't played in a while. So I mean, it could be good, could be bad. We'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, like I mentioned in the first EU day, was the fact that he was trying to maybe find his role within the team, find his strengths on specific gods. So he was kind of maybe in that experimental phase. This LAN so far, he's been leaning a little bit towards Naja. So we'll see if Epsilon chooses to ban him out, or if they found a strategy to let him have Naja and deal with it.
And we saw, honestly, how powerful and impactful Naja was in the Eager set. Something we haven't seen out of adapting, though, is a Naja. We've seen it a lot in ranked, if anyone watches his streams. But I have to ask the question to all three of you. Is adapting the best player in the world right now?
I'd say yes.
Possibly yes.
Absolutely. I mean, you look through this entire season and his stats, he's been like the best started jungler in all 3 splits. It's hard to argue with that, even when Epsilon weren't, they were middle of the table. They were still a very good team, but adapting has always been up there. Even back to Potato Boys, back in the Challenger Cup in Season 1, he was the star of that team, and when we went to the Challenger Cup, it was always, it felt like it was us versus adapting and trying to get him to shut down before the game was over.
What makes him so good? What's really adapting style of play?
He exploits weaknesses and holes. His most preferred god is Thor, as we see, and he'll just constantly roam the map anywhere he can. He'll gank solo lane, he'll gank dual lane, he just doesn't care.
Do you think that the jungle could be the tipping point for this matchup? Is it kind of Cherio's job to make plays, or is he just looking to control adapting, do you feel, Shadow?
I mean, I know adapting usually sets the pace of the game, but you could also, like, a Cherio could just wait and then just counter gank and go for the counter gank opportunities just to catch the adapting off guard, because he might not be expecting it, but he probably does calculate that into his gank, and that could just go very horribly wrong for LC. So
kind of something that we saw out of Enemy. Enemy, I'd say, when they upset, really played a pretty counter gank style, let teams initiate into them. Maybe Envy and TSM were kind of underestimating them. Do you feel like that could be a problem here for Epsilon? Could they underestimate London Conspiracy?
I think they might. I mean, we did, and we saw what happened with that. So I think they need to, understand that they could with these strategies that they're going to pull out. I understand that LC have actually got a lot of different pick and bans ready for these games. So I think Epsilon should be wary of what might come out, so they're not too surprised. But I think they should be pretty okay.
I got to go to Shadow though for the mid laners here. Yaman versus Arrow here. Let's start with Yaman, obviously going to be pairing up with adapting. How important is it for that mid and jungler synergy? I know you and Frostak always are looking to make plays and rotate together. Is it the same thing with Epsilon?
Yeah, definitely. Like Yaman, like he used to love the Yanis. I'm not sure if he still does, but he played Yanis a hell of a lot, and that's just because he can make easy plays with adapting. He can get adapting out if he's too deep. They can go really deep if they want to chase a kill. Like the synergy is there, and they pick the gods to complement that as well.
Why haven't we seen Yanis too much this tournament? Because I know you were looking for it. It got banned out very quickly by Paradigm, but in North America and kind of the rest of the European games, he's kind of been left alone.
I think that's because Zeus is, got reworked, and he's just become crazy strong. His damage, his AoE, his map control of objectives is just crazy. And Zonkui is another god as well that has just become a meta god, just came out of nowhere. People started taking it a little bit more than they used to. And the same thing, AoE, big control of objectives.
Do you think we'll see more Giannis throughout this tournament after we saw it yesterday?
Probably, yeah. As long as it doesn't get banned out, then I think we might see a little bit of Giannis appearing.
It's going to be Arrow on the other side, Ataraxia. What's kind of Arrow's style of play? Because I feel like it's pretty hard to figure out. I don't see him go off crazy. I don't see him really have a specific style.
I think he's going to go for the big wombo ults. I think that's kind of, with his Scylla's and his Poseidons, that's kind of what he's been successful with in the past. So I would probably look for some heavy CC on either a Milzy or Cherio to lead into a big ult from Arrow to get most of the damage out.
Do you feel like that might have been figured out though? Because they used it against yourself almost every single game. How important is it for Epsilon to be able to watch that back and really kind of figure out that style that they went for, at least during that set?
They can be wary of it, but at the end of the day, crowd control is crowd control, If you get a taunt with no beads, then it doesn't matter if you know it's coming or not, you're going to get hit by the Kukulkan ult or the Cellar ult. So it's kind of, I think Epsilon would, they can prepare for it, but ultimately if they slip up, then they are going to get punished very hard by the playstyle of Arrow.
Moving on to the solo laners, it's going to be Demi versus Zashu. I think a lot of people are expecting this matchup to be a little bit one-sided in comparison to the rest of the lanes. Talk to me real quick about Demi and how strong he's been for Epsilon.
Well, Demi has a really great mindset with his team mentality, and something we forgot to mention was the flex pick of Nuwa. They run it in middle, and they run it in the solo lanes for Demi, so Nuwa could be a highly contested pick for Epsilon, and we'll just see how it goes. Right now we see him playing the Xing Chen. I don't see Xing Chen going through, honestly, this series. Xing Chen probably has the highest win rate so far in this tournament.
Yeah, we saw Variety do a lot of work on it yesterday or the other day. And, so far, Xing has been pretty important. Zashu's God Pool a little bit different. We saw him experiment a little bit with Aphrodite, although not to much success. But he seems to experiment a little bit more. Would you think London Conspiracy are going to be looking to kind of go out of meta, or do you feel like we'll see kind of a North American style like your team adapted?
I think they might go out of meta a little bit. I mean, Zashu plays pretty much every god in the game, but I think he more plays what the team needs. So So if they have like a really good setup, like Aphrodite will complement this really well, he'll play if it's needed. If they need a bruiser, he'll play Bologna, Tia. He just has like an infinite god pool. He just plays what the team requires, and he plays it pretty well as well.
But Demi kind of has an out-of-meta god pool as well, Ataraxia.
He does.
Do you think we're going to see it? I feel like towards the end of the split, he didn't go too crazy, but early on we saw a lot of Poseidons, a lot of Nuas.
I feel like Zashu tries to imitate Demi in a lot of ways with the way that he does this god pool for the team, and I don't think he has the same success. I think imitating him is the correct thing to do because Demi is kind of the standard for solo lane in EU. But whenever he does go out of these out-of-meta picks, Zashu that is, he kind of struggles a bit, as we saw with the Aphrodite. So I'd actually really like to see Zashu stick to the NA style of just going Warriors, because he is very, very good at that. And I think that's what he does. You know, he gets to the back line, and maybe the mage is not so much his thing.
All right, I think we're going to start predicting here a little bit and maybe discussing the team styles. Epsilon versus London Conspiracy.
I got to give it 3-0 to Epsilon here.
3-1 to Epsilon.
3-0 to Epsilon.
So I do want to talk to you a little bit about the 3-1. Where is that coming off of?
I think LC might do some weird strategy that Epsilon aren't expecting and just catch them off guard and snowball the game. I think that'll only be the game.
I could see them like invading solo lane potentially if he runs like Nua solo lane and they look for some kind of aggressive play there.
If you're trying to actually beat Epsilon, which lane are you looking at? Is it a lane or is it team fights? Like how outside of cheese strats, like what is it? Is there any weakness in Epsilon?
I think it's probably got to be a counter gank or something, because they're very safe, and Adaptin just finds these openings out of nowhere. So maybe whenever they look for that, I think they've just got to buy the time and try to predict where Adaptin's going to go. Maybe fake a weakness so they can get him to go in and then collapse on it. But I think it's going to be very difficult just to focus on a lane and get ahead, because they're smart players and they will turtle up when necessary.
All right, guys, that's going to be it for us here at the Analyst Lounge. We're going to throw it to the casters for London Conspiracy taking on Epsilon for the World Championship spot.